Oh, we are live. Okay, I'm trying this new format and it kind of makes me look like I have no hair. But I wanted to put up a few notes about what we're going to talk about today. So we are going to talk about marketing your private practice in a rural area. So if you are just tuning in, please tell me where you are right now, first of all. And tell me if you're in a rural area, if you're not. This really has to do with any practices that are in smaller cities to very rural places, right? So if you're in a highly saturated city, LA, Chicago, New York, this might not apply as much to you, but I still think it can be helpful. Okay, so someone's tuning in from rural Pennsylvania, from Canada. Yeah, tell me where you're coming in from. Obviously, Minnesota. I went to college in Minnesota. I went to Carleton. Suburbs. Yeah. So we're talking about smaller cities to rural areas. And I just wanted to give you guys a few tips. I had somebody send me a DM today that said, what do I do if I live in a rural area? How do I market my private practice? So I'm going to give you some tips today. And if you want to take a deeper dive into this, comment the rocket ship emoji, the little rocket one. And I will make sure that you get the link to my course. But we're going to go over some tips today. So first of all, if you are in private practice and you are considering marketing in a smaller town, one thing you want to make sure you're doing is considering telehealth. So that's really like the most important one, that you can expand your reach. So especially if you're in a tiny, tiny town, you are licensed in your whole state. So you can definitely be offering telehealth services all over your state. You could spend networking days in different parts of the state. Maybe you go drive 2 or 3 hours away and meet with doctors, lawyers, schools in a different part of the state, or you schedule virtual coffee meetings. But definitely, if you're in a rural area and you're struggling to get clients, make sure you add a telehealth component to your practice. Second of all, if you are in a smaller area, one thing that I often talk about on this page is that you need to niche down. There is one exception to this, okay? If you are in a very rural area, you might not niche down quite as much. Now, I still do not want you to be saying like, okay, I see anyone and everyone, but maybe instead of saying, I only see teen girls with eating disorders, you might say I work with teens in general. Okay, so you might just expand your niche a little bit because you're not working as in as saturated of a market. And so that's one thing. Like if the market's a little bit less saturated where you are, you can expand your niche a little bit more because there's not as many providers. You don't have to niche down quite as much. So that's definitely something to think about. The other thing I want you to make sure that you're doing is you're really fostering a sense of local community. So if you are in a small town, more than likely there are not tons and tons of therapists, but there might be some therapy groups, there might be a professional organization, and you definitely want to be going to those. In a smaller community, that kind of like hyper local organization is going to be really important. Someone's here is saying, yes, collaborating with other providers is really important. Definitely. Collaboration is one of the best ways to market your private practice when in reality, you're just collaborating on cases together. If I lived in a very small town, although where I live is not super huge either, I think it's important to form consultation groups and to have, if your city doesn't have, the Rural Pennsylvania MFT Association, then make it, then create that organization, right? Whatever resources you feel like you could use in your city, it's an opportunity to get out there and meet people and create some of those resources. So, whether it's hosting a networking coffee once a month for the other therapists in your city, meeting face-to-face is really important, especially when you're in a smaller city, and really knowing the other providers. The last thing I would say too is if you are in a smaller town, I want you to extend your marketing, it should say under my head here somewhere, about 50 miles. So this is something people don't always think to do. But if you're somewhere where there's not a lot of therapists, like I know here where I live in Santa Barbara, we have a huge shortage of providers. If anyone wants to move here, you should. And so extending your marketing efforts a little bit further away, sometimes clients are willing to drive further, especially if there's not very many providers in your city. So meet with people who are a little bit further, meet with doctors, lawyers, other therapists, professional organizations, maybe in the city over, sitting next to you, and that can really extend your reach too. All right, so those are my tips. I hope everyone who's here enjoyed them. Being live is so funny. I can actually just see that my babysitter just texted me, so I'm gonna have to go. But if you want to take a deeper dive into marketing your private practice, comment the rocket ship emoji, and I will send you the link to my private practice marketing course. Have a good day, everyone.